not lazy, you're emotionally frozen. Maybe you have been calling yourself lazy for years. Maybe you have looked at your room, your unfinished projects, your unopened messages, your delayed dreams, and thought, what is wrong with me? Why can't I just do the thing? Why do I keep wasting time? Why do I keep watching my life from the outside instead of living it? And maybe, because the world loves simple labels, you accepted the easiest one. Lazy, undisciplined, unmotivated, weak, broken, too sensitive, too distracted, too far behind. But what if that label was never accurate? What if laziness is not the real story? What if your system is not refusing life because it does not care, but because at some point caring became too painful? What if your mind did not give up on you? What if it protected you so well for so long that it slowly forgot how to let you feel fully alive? There is a state that many people live in without having a name for it. It is not always dramatic.
It does not always look like a breakdown. Sometimes it looks like sitting on the edge of your bed for 30 minutes, staring at nothing. Sometimes it looks like scrolling until 2 in the morning, not because the phone is interesting, but because silence feels too close to something you do not want to meet. Sometimes it looks like being able to work, smile, reply, pay bills, laugh at the right moment, and still feel like there is a glass wall between you and your own life. That state is emotional freezing, and it is one of the most misunderstood forms of suffering because it does not always announce itself as pain. It often announces itself as absence. No excitement, no grief, no real anger, no real joy, no clear desire, no strong direction. You are not necessarily crying every day. You are not necessarily panicking every night. You are simply not there in the way you used to be. You may wake up and already feel tired, not physically tired in the normal way, but emotionally tired before anything has even happened. You may think about calling someone you love and feel a strange heaviness, as if connection itself requires more energy than you have. You may want a better life, but when the moment comes to move toward it, something inside you goes still. Not resistant, not rebellious, just still. People who do not understand this will tell you to push harder. They will tell you to build discipline, write goals, wake up earlier, make a schedule, stop making excuses. Sometimes those things help, but sometimes they do not touch the real problem because they are speaking to the conscious mind, while the body is still living in protection mode. The frozen person does not need more shame. Shame is often what kept them frozen in the first place. The frozen person does not need to be attacked into movement. They need to be understood back into life. Because emotional freezing is not a personality flaw. It is a survival strategy that outlived the danger. Your nervous system has ancient ways of protecting you. Fight, flight, freeze, fawn. These are not poetic ideas. They are body-level responses. When the system believes a situation is dangerous, overwhelming, or impossible to escape, it does not ask your permission. It chooses the response that seems most likely to keep you alive. If fighting was not safe, if running was not possible, if speaking up made things worse, if feeling everything would have shattered you, freezing may have been the most intelligent option available. This is why some people do not remember the exact moment they became numb. It was not always one clear event. Sometimes it was years of small betrayals, years of being ignored, years of walking on eggshells, years of being told they were too much, years of needing comfort and receiving criticism, years of being the strong one, years of learning that no one was coming. So the safest thing was to need less, feel less, expect less. At first, numbness may feel like relief. When pain is too big, numbness gives you distance. When grief is too sharp, numbness dulls the blade. When anxiety is too loud, numbness turns down the volume. The problem is that the same wall that protects you from pain also separates you from joy. The same door that keeps out fear also keeps out intimacy. The same shutdown that helped you survive can eventually become the cage you mistake for your personality. And then, one day, you look around and realize you are functioning, but not living. You are present, but not connected. You are moving, but not choosing. You are alive, but not fully in your life. This is where many people start blaming themselves. They say, I have no reason to feel this way. Other people have it worse. My life is not that bad. I should be grateful. I should be productive. I should be over this by now. But emotional reality does not disappear because you compare it to someone else's pain. You cannot shame a nervous system into safety. You cannot insult yourself into feeling alive. And you cannot heal something you keep calling laziness when it is actually a wound. The first step is not forcing yourself to become a different person. The first step is telling the truth about what is happening. You are not lazy because you do not care. You may be frozen because you cared too much for too long without enough support. You may be frozen because your body learned that desire leads to disappointment, that trust leads to humiliation, that hope leads to pain, that asking for help leads to being dismissed, that being visible leads to being judged, that feeling fully leads to being overwhelmed. So it did what any intelligent system would do. It lowered the emotional temperature. It slowed the inner movement. It made you less reachable. It made you harder to hurt. But now you are trying to build a life from behind that wall, and you cannot understand why everything feels heavier than it should. This video is not about diagnosing you. It is not about giving you a new identity to hide behind. It is about offering a language for something many people silently live with. It is about looking at the difference between laziness and shutdown. It is about understanding why motivation disappears when the deeper self no longer feels safe. It is about why the advice that works for a mildly distracted person can feel useless, even cruel, to someone whose entire system is bracing. And more than anything, it is about the slow return. Because you are not broken beyond repair. You are not empty by nature. You are not incapable of love, discipline, joy, or meaning. You may simply be frozen. And frozen things do not need to be beaten. They need warmth. Chapter 1: The Quiet Disappearance of Feeling. Emotional freezing rarely begins with a dramatic announcement. It usually arrives quietly. At first, you might simply feel tired. Then certain things stop exciting you. Then small tasks begin to feel strangely heavy. Then messages pile up. Then your room becomes a map of everything you keep postponing. Then weeks pass and you realize you have not truly felt close to yourself in a long time. What makes this state so confusing is that it can look normal from the outside. You can still go to work, you can still make jokes, you can still be polite. You can still order food, attend meetings, pay rent, drive home, answer when someone asks how you are. You may even seem calm. People might call you easygoing. They might say you are low maintenance. They might assume you are fine because you are not making a scene. but inside there is a strange flatness. Life has lost depth. You hear good news and know you should be happy, but the feeling does not arrive. You hear bad news and know you should be devastated, but something in you stays distant. You look at people you love and know they matter, but the warmth is covered by fog. You remember who you used to be, but that version of you feels like someone you once knew in another lifetime. This is not the same as not caring. In many cases, frozen people care deeply. That is exactly why the system shut down. If you did not care, there would be nothing to protect. Numbness often grows around a heart that was overwhelmed, not a heart that was empty. A person who is emotionally frozen may say, "I don't know what I want." But beneath that sentence is often another one. "I have learned that wanting is dangerous." Wanting makes you vulnerable. Wanting means you can be refused. Wanting means you can fail. Wanting means you can be seen. Wanting means you can lose. So the mind, in its own protective logic, may reduce wanting altogether. This can affect everything. You may not know what career you want because every option feels equally distant. You may not know whether you want to stay in a relationship or leave because both choices feel unreal. You may not know what hobby you enjoy because enjoyment itself has become hard to access. You may stand in front of a menu and feel overwhelmed by a simple decision, not because you are indecisive, but because your inner compass has gone quiet. When people lose contact with feeling, they often try to replace it with thinking. They analyze everything, they make lists, they search for the correct answer. They watch videos, read posts, compare themselves, ask strangers online, make plans, abandon plans, redesign plans. But no amount of thinking can fully replace the guidance of emotion. Emotion is not just drama. Emotion is information. It tells you what matters, what hurts, what needs attention, what feels safe, what feels wrong, what brings life closer. When that signal becomes muted, the person may feel lost even in ordinary situations. They may keep asking, "What should I do?" when the deeper question is, "Why can't I feel what I want?" Emotional freezing can also create a painful split between appearance and reality. On the outside, you may look like someone who simply lacks discipline. On the inside, it may feel like pressing the gas pedal in a car that has been placed in neutral. You try to move, you intend to move, you even hate yourself for not moving, but something does not connect. This is why shame becomes so tempting. Shame offers a simple explanation. It says, "You are the problem." And strangely, that can feel easier than uncertainty. If you are the problem, maybe you can punish yourself into change. Maybe you can hate yourself enough to become productive. Maybe you can compare yourself to others until fear forces you to act. But shame is a poor fuel. It burns hot and dirty. It may move you for a day, a week, a month, but eventually it leaves the system more exhausted than before. The person who moves through shame does not feel alive. They feel chased. And many emotionally frozen people have been chasing themselves for years. They chase themselves with guilt. They chase themselves with deadlines. They chase themselves with self-disgust. They chase themselves with imagined judgment. They say, "Everyone else is moving ahead. Everyone else figured it out. Everyone else has discipline. Everyone else is becoming something." But comparison only deepens the freeze because it tells the nervous system, "You're not safe as you are. You are behind. You're failing. You are in danger. A system that feels in danger does not become more creative. It becomes more defensive. It does not open, it contracts. So the first thing to understand is that emotional freezing is not the absence of life. It is life held back. It is a river under ice. The water has not disappeared, it has been covered. And if you confuse the ice for your true nature, you may spend years believing you are cold, when in reality, you are protected. The question is not, why am I so lazy? The deeper question is, what happened inside me that made stillness feel safer than movement? Chapter 2. Why the mind freezes. The mind does not freeze because it is stupid. The body does not shut down because it wants to ruin your future. These responses are not designed for happiness. They are designed for survival. When a person is overwhelmed, the nervous system makes rapid calculations beneath conscious thought. Can I fight? Can I escape? Can I get help? Can I speak? Can I change what is happening? If the answer feels like no, the system may freeze. It reduces movement. It reduces sensation. It creates distance from pain. It can make the person feel unreal, detached, sleepy, foggy, passive, or strangely calm in situations that should feel intense. This can happen during obvious trauma, but it can also happen in quieter environments. A child who is constantly criticized may freeze. A teenager who is emotionally ignored may freeze. An adult trapped in a relationship where every honest conversation becomes punishment may freeze. Someone working for years in a state of burnout may freeze. Someone who experienced repeated disappointment may freeze. Someone who learned that their emotions were inconvenient may freeze. A person does not need one dramatic memory to justify their numbness. Sometimes the nervous system is shaped by repetition. One moment of pain may wound you, but repeated emotional neglect teaches the body what to expect from the world. It teaches you not to reach, not to ask, not to believe too quickly, not to relax too deeply, not to hope too openly. This is why emotional freezing often comes with a strange loyalty to disappointment. Part of you may want a better life, but another part distrusts it. You may say you want love, but when someone comes close, you feel nothing or feel trapped. You may say you want success, but when an opportunity appears, you delay until it disappears. You may say you want change, but your body behaves as if change is a threat. That contradiction is not hypocrisy. It is conflict between parts of the self. One part wants to move forward. Another part remembers what happened the last time you moved toward something with an open heart. One part wants connection. Another part remembers being rejected, mocked, used, abandoned, controlled, or misunderstood. One part wants visibility. Another part remembers that being seen once meant being criticized. So the mind freezes at the edge of desire, not because desire is bad, but because desire has become linked with danger. People often think motivation comes from logic. They believe if you know something is good for you, you should be able to do it. But human beings are not moved by logic alone. We move when the body senses enough safety to invest energy. We move when some part of us believes the future is reachable. We move when desire is not immediately swallowed by fear. If your body learned that effort does not matter because nothing changes anyway, motivation becomes difficult. If your body learned that success brings more pressure, more attention, more criticism, then success may feel threatening. If your body learned that rest is unsafe, then even rest may not restore you. You can lie down for 10 hours and still wake up tired because the body never truly stood down. Emotional freezing is often connected to helplessness. Not ordinary helplessness, but learned helplessness. When a person repeatedly experiences situations where their actions do not seem to change the outcome, the mind may stop initiating. It says, "Why try?" Not as a philosophical statement, but as a protective adaptation. Trying and failing hurts. Wanting and being denied hurts. Reaching and finding no one there hurts. So eventually, the system may reduce the impulse to try at all. This can look exactly like laziness. But laziness usually carries ease.
Real laziness has some pleasure in it. A person choosing laziness may relax, enjoy, avoid effort because comfort feels good. Emotional freezing is different. It often has no real pleasure. The person is not enjoying the avoidance. They are suffering inside it. They are not peacefully resting. They are trapped in low-grade self-hatred, guilt, fear, and numbness. That distinction matters. If you avoid cleaning your room and feel relaxed watching a movie, maybe you simply chose comfort. But if you avoid cleaning your room, cannot enjoy the movie, hate yourself the whole time, feel heavy in your body, and still cannot move, that is probably not simple laziness. That is paralysis. The frozen system is not saying, "I do not care." It is saying, "I do not feel safe enough to engage." This is why yelling at yourself rarely works. Imagine a frightened animal hiding under a porch. You can scream at it to come out. You can insult it. You can compare it to other animals. You can tell it how pathetic it is for hiding. It will not become safer. It will hide deeper. The nervous system is the same. The part of you that is frozen does not respond well to contempt. It responds to safety, consistency, patience, and truthful contact. But many of us were raised to believe that kindness equals weakness. We learned that if we are gentle with ourselves, we will become soft, spoiled, useless. So we choose cruelty and call it discipline. We attack ourselves and call it motivation. We push past every signal and call it strength. Sometimes that works for a while, but if the deeper issue is shut down, more pressure can create more shutdown. To thaw, you must understand the protective logic of the freeze. You do not have to worship it, you do not have to stay inside it, but you do have to respect that it once helped you endure something. A wall is not evil because it blocks the view. A wall is built because at some point protection felt necessary. Healing is not smashing the wall with hatred. Healing is learning whether the danger is still present and whether the wall still needs to be so high. Chapter 3. The difference between laziness and shut-on. One of the most important questions is this: how do you know whether you are lazy or emotionally frozen? The answer is not found in how much you accomplish. Some frozen people accomplish a lot. They become high-functioning, successful, reliable, impressive. They perform their lives with discipline while feeling dead inside. Others collapse into procrastination and avoidance. Both can come from the same root, a disconnection from authentic feeling. The difference is the inner experience. Laziness, in the casual sense, usually means you are avoiding effort because you prefer comfort, pleasure, or ease. There's nothing morally wrong with that. Everyone has lazy moments. Everyone avoids tasks. Everyone chooses the couch sometimes. But emotional shutdown is different because it does not feel like comfort. It feels like being unable to access your own will. A lazy person may say, "I do not feel like doing this." A frozen person may say, "I want to do this, but I cannot reach the part of me that moves." That sentence matters. I want to. There is desire somewhere, but it is buried. You want to care, You want to clean. You want to call back. You want to create. You want to study. You want to become healthier. You want to love better. You want to stop disappearing from your own life. But when you try to take the first step, something inside you goes blank. This blankness can feel like fog. It can feel like pressure behind the eyes. It can feel like heaviness in the chest. It can feel like the body suddenly becoming tired. It can feel like a mental wall. It can feel like an invisible hand pulling you back from action. Some people experience shutdown as sleepiness. Every time they approach a meaningful task, they become exhausted. Not because the task is objectively difficult, but because meaning activates the system. A task that matters can awaken fear. If you fail, it will hurt. If you succeed, life may change. If you are seen, you may be judged. If you commit, you may lose freedom. If you hope, you may be disappointed. So the body chooses fog. Other people experience shutdown as endless distraction. They cannot sit with themselves long enough to feel the deeper discomfort, so they move from app to app, video to video, snack to snack, thought to thought. The distraction is not joy, it is sedation. It keeps the nervous system away from the edge of feeling. This is why many people hate their distractions but still return to them. The phone is not satisfying, but it is reliable. It asks little. It never demands emotional honesty. It gives quick stimulation without requiring vulnerability. It becomes a portable anesthetic. A person who is frozen often lives with unfinished loops, unfinished conversations, unfinished applications, unfinished creative projects, unfinished apologies, unfinished decisions, unfinished grief. The mind keeps opening doors and walking away before entering, not because it does not matter, but because completion requires presence, and presence can be terrifying when you have been absent from yourself for a long time. Completion can also bring emptiness. Many people fear starting because they fear failing, but some fear finishing because they do not know who they will be afterward. An unfinished project can remain a fantasy. It can still be perfect in your mind. Once you finish it, reality gets to respond. People may ignore it, criticize it, misunderstand it, or worse, they may like it, and then you may feel pressure to do more. So the frozen person stays suspended, not here, not there, not failing, not succeeding, not choosing, not losing, not beginning, not ending. Suspension feels miserable, but it also feels strangely safe because nothing fully happens. This is the quiet prison of emotional freezing. Nothing fully happens. You do not fully rest. You do not fully work. You do not fully love. You do not fully leave. You do not fully stay. You do not fully grieve. You do not fully celebrate. You hover. And because you hover, life begins to feel unreal. This is why you may feel like a spectator. You watch other people make decisions, move cities, start relationships, leave bad situations, build skills, change bodies, change careers. You are not jealous in a simple way. You are grieving access. You are watching people do what your own body will not yet let you do. Participate. The painful part is that others may not see the battle. They only see the result. They see the unanswered text, not the hour you spent staring at it. They see the messy room, not the internal collapse that begins when you try to stand up. They see the missed opportunity, not the panic hidden beneath your indifference. They see the quiet person, not the person who learnt that expressing need led nowhere. This misunderstanding can become internalized. After years of being misunderstood, you may begin misunderstanding yourself.
You may become your own harshest observer. You may look at your symptoms and call them character flaws. But what if your inability to move is not evidence that you are lazy? What if it is evidence that some part of you does not believe movement is safe? What if procrastination is sometimes fear wearing casual clothes? What if apathy is sometimes grief that has nowhere to go? What if numbness is sometimes anger that was never allowed to speak? What if low motivation is sometimes the body refusing to invest energy in a life that does not feel emotionally real? When you begin to ask these questions, the story changes. You stop asking, "How do I force myself?" and begin asking, "What part of me needs to feel safe enough to move?" That is not weakness. That is precision. Chapter 4. How you lost contact with yourself. No one is born emotionally frozen. Babies arrive with feeling. They reach, cry, laugh, cling, protest, explore. They do not apologize for having needs. They do not wonder whether their sadness is inconvenient. They do not shame themselves for wanting comfort. Self-disconnection is learned. You learn it when your feelings are repeatedly ignored. You learn it when your needs create irritation in the people who are supposed to care for you. You learn it when love is unpredictable. You learn it when you must become easy in order to be accepted. You learn it when anger is punished, sadness is mocked, joy is interrupted, fear is dismissed, or vulnerability is used against you. At first, a child keeps trying. They cry louder, they explain, they reach again, they ask again, they hope again. But if the response is consistently absent, harsh, confusing, or unsafe, the system adapts. It may not say this in words, but the body learns. Having needs is dangerous. Expressing feelings is useless. Wanting comfort leads to humiliation. Being fully myself creates problems. So the child becomes less visible. Some become the good child, the easy one, the helpful one, the funny one, the smart one, the quiet one, the one who never asks for much, the one who can read the room before anyone speaks, the one who can sense a mood shift for a footstep, a sigh, a change in tone. This child may be praised as mature, but much of that maturity is hypervigilance wearing a nice outfit. Later, as an adult, this person may not know how to want. They may know how to please. They may know how to perform. They may know how to avoid conflict. They may know how to anticipate disappointment. But wanting from the center of the self may feel unfamiliar. This is why emotional freezing is often tied to people-pleasing. If you spend years scanning others to stay safe, your attention moved away from your own inner world. You became an expert in other people's moods and a stranger to your own. When someone asks, "What do you want?" you may freeze. Not because you are polite, but because you genuinely do not know. Your system was trained to ask a different question. What will keep the peace? What will make them happy? What will avoid rejection? What will make me easier to love? Over time, this creates a quiet resentment. You may feel angry but not know why. You may feel trapped in relationships you agreed to. You may feel exhausted by obligations you never consciously chose. You may blame others for taking too much, but somewhere inside you know you never learned how to say no without feeling like a bad person. Emotional freezing can be the result of too many abandoned no's. Every time you swallowed a no, your body remembered. Every time you smiled when you wanted to leave, your body remembered. Every time you said, "It's fine," when it was not fine, your body remembered. Every time you apologized for needing basic respect, your body remembered.
Eventually, the system may stop sending clear signals because clear signals were ignored anyway. If your anger never changed anything, anger may go underground. If your sadness never brought comfort, sadness may become numbness. If your desire never mattered, desire may become vague. This is not the death of the self, it is the self going into hiding. And the hidden self does not return through pressure, it returns through permission. Permission to notice what you actually feel, even when it is inconvenient. Permission to admit that something hurt you, even if it happened years ago. Permission to stop minimizing. Permission to say, maybe it was not that bad, is not the same as, it did not affect me. Permission to acknowledge that a childhood can look normal from the outside and still teach a person to disappear. Many adults struggle to validate their own pain because no one taught them that subtle wounds count. They think trauma must be extreme to matter. They think emotional neglect is not real unless there was obvious cruelty. But the nervous system is shaped not only by what happened, it is shaped by what should have happened and did not. Comfort that never came matters. Protection that never came matters. Apologies that never came matter. Being understood only as a role and not as a person matters. Being loved for performance and not for presence matters. A person can be fed, housed, educated, and still emotionally starved. When emotional starvation continues long enough, the person may stop feeling hunger. That does not mean they no longer need love. It means they stopped expecting it. This is why thawing can be painful. When feeling returns, it may not return as joy first. It may return as grief. You may begin to realize how lonely you were, how much you adapted, how many years you spent being acceptable instead of real. How many relationships were built around the version of you that needed nothing. That grief is not a sign that healing is failing. It is often a sign that the numbness is softening. The self you lost is not gone. It has been waiting for conditions where it no longer has to hide. Chapter 5. When everything looks fine, but nothing feels alive. One of the most confusing forms of emotional freezing happens when life looks okay on paper. You may have a job, a place to live, food in the fridge, people who would answer if you called. Nothing is visibly collapsing. No disaster is happening today. And yet inside, there is a dull emptiness you cannot explain. This is where guilt often enters. You say, I should be grateful. And maybe you are grateful in your mind. You can recognize that you have things others do not. You can understand that your life is not entirely bad. But gratitude as a thought is not the same as aliveness as an experience. You can appreciate your life and still feel disconnected from it. Modern life makes this especially complicated because many people are not living in immediate physical danger, but they are living in chronic emotional strain. They are overstimulated, underconnected, pressured to perform, surrounded by comparison, financially anxious, socially fragmented, and constantly told to optimize themselves. They are not being chased by a predator, but their nervous system rarely hears the signal that the danger is over. A human being is not designed to be a brand, a machine, a profile, a productivity system, and an emotional island all at once. Many people are not lazy, they are overloaded by a life that gives them stimulation, but not nourishment. There is a difference between stimulation and nourishment. Stimulation grabs your attention. Nourishment restores your being. A phone can stimulate you for hours and leave you emptier than before. A real conversation can nourish you in 10 minutes. 1,000 images can stimulate your eyes.
One honest moment can nourish your heart. Emotionally frozen people often live on stimulation because nourishment requires presence. Presence can feel dangerous when you are carrying unprocessed pain, so the mind chooses things that keep it busy without asking it to open. Videos, feeds, noise, random tasks, fantasy, overthinking, substances, compulsive planning, endless self-improvement content. These things are not always bad, but they can become ways of avoiding contact with the ache underneath. This is why you may feel drained even after doing nothing. You were not doing nothing. You were managing distance from yourself. That takes energy. Avoidance is exhausting because it requires constant maintenance. You must keep the painful thought away, keep the memory away, keep the honest question away, keep the desire away, keep the disappointment away, keep the anger away, keep the loneliness away. Keep the body busy enough that it does not speak too loudly. The frozen life can become extremely busy on the surface and completely still underneath. You may have a calendar full of obligations and still feel like nothing is happening. You may have conversations all day and still feel unknown. You may achieve goals and feel only a brief flicker before flatness returns. You may buy things, change your appearance, move apartments, start routines, make promises, and still sense that the real problem came with you. That is because the problem is not simply external, it is relational. It is the relationship between you and your own inner world. If you've been emotionally frozen, you may have built a life around avoiding certain feelings. You may avoid jobs that require risk, avoid relationships that require vulnerability, avoid rest because rest brings awareness, avoid ambition because ambition brings fear, avoid honesty because honesty brings consequences, avoid silence because silence brings truth. But every avoided feeling becomes a room in the house of the self that you no longer enter. At first, avoiding one room seems manageable, then another, then another. Eventually, you are living in the hallway of your own life. That hallway can be functional. You can survive there. You can answer emails there. You can make dinner there. You can say, "I'm fine," there. But you cannot feel at home there. The frozen person often mistakes survival for peace. They say, "At least nothing bad is happening." But absence of disaster is not the same as presence of life. Peace is not numbness. Peace has warmth in it. Peace has breath. Peace allows feeling. Numbness is cold. It reduces pain, but it also reduces contact. This is why some people secretly fear getting better. They worry that if they thaw, they will have to feel everything they avoided. They may have to admit they are unhappy. They may have to end something. They may have to begin something. They may have to grieve years they cannot get back. They may have to stop pretending that fine is enough. And that is frightening. But staying frozen has a cost too. The cost is not always dramatic. It is the slow disappearance of wonder, the decline of curiosity, the loss of appetite for life, the habit of choosing what is safe over what is true, the way days begin to blur, the way years can pass while you keep saying, "Later." There is a particular sadness in realizing you did not fail because you were incapable. You stalled because some part of you was afraid to fully arrive. But there is also hope in that realization. Because if the issue is not your character, but your protection, then the path is not self-hatred. The path is safety, reconnection, and gradual movement. You do not need to become someone else. You need to become reachable to yourself again. Chapter 6. The body keeps the score even when the mind explains it away. A lot of people try to solve emotional freezing entirely in the mind. They want the perfect insight, the perfect explanation, the perfect sentence that will unlock everything. Insight matters, but insight alone is not always enough, because freezing is not only a story in your head, it is a pattern in your body. The body remembers what the mind minimizes. You may say, "It wasn't a big deal." Your chest tightens. You may say, "I'm over it." Your stomach drops when someone uses the same tone. You may say, "I don't care." Your jaw clenches. You may say, "I'm fine alone." Your body aches for closeness and then recoils when it appears. This is why emotional freezing often feels confusing. The conscious mind has explanations, but the body has reactions. You can know logically that a person is safe and still feel threatened. You can know logically that a task is simple and still feel paralyzed. You can know logically that you deserve rest and still feel guilty the moment you stop. The body does not operate on logic alone. It operates on association. It asks, what has this meant before? If closeness once meant control, closeness may feel unsafe. If failure once meant humiliation, trying may feel unsafe. If rest once meant being called lazy, rest may feel unsafe. If expressing anger once meant losing love, anger may become inaccessible. This is why healing cannot be only motivational. You cannot lecture the body into trust. You have to show it repeatedly through experience that something different is possible. If your body expects criticism, one kind inner response will not immediately change everything, but repeated non-cruelty matters. If your body expects abandonment, one safe conversation will not erase the fear, but repeated reliability matters. If your body expects overwhelm, one small completed task will not transform your life, but repeated manageable action matters. The nervous system learns through patterns. Many people want a breakthrough, a dramatic moment where they finally understand everything and become free. Breakthroughs happen, but much healing is less cinematic. It is small, almost boring, and deeply powerful. It is noticing that you are holding your breath and exhaling. It is realizing you are calling yourself disgusting and choosing a gentler word. It is doing 5 minutes instead of demanding 5 hours. It is texting back honestly instead of disappearing. It is saying no before resentment becomes poison. These small acts tell the body, we are not living the old story in the same way anymore. When a person is emotionally frozen, the body may need evidence that movement will not destroy them. This is why tiny steps are not childish. They are neurologically intelligent. If your system has learned that action equals danger, then forcing massive change can confirm the threat. Small steps create tolerable proof. A frozen system thaws through tolerable contact, not violent exposure. This matters because many people try to heal by overwhelming themselves. They decide they will change everything on Monday. They will wake up at 5, go to the gym, fix their diet, answer everyone, work for 10 hours, stop scrolling, meditate, journal, clean the house, forgive the past, and become a new person by Friday. That is not healing. That is panic in a costume. And when they cannot maintain it, they collapse back into shame. See, I knew I was lazy. I knew I couldn't change. But the plan failed not because they are hopeless. It failed because it did not respect the state of the nervous system. A frozen person does not need a war plan. They need a thawing process. The body responds to rhythm: sleep, food, movement, daylight, breath, touch, voice, music, safe relationships, honest expression. These are not trendy wellness ideas. They are ways the organism receives signals. The mind may say, "This is too simple." But the body is built from simple signals repeated consistently. When you are emotionally frozen, you may be disconnected from physical sensation. You may not notice hunger until you are starving. You may not notice tension until pain appears. You may not know whether you are tired, sad, angry, or overwhelmed because everything arrives as one grey fog. A useful question is not, "What do I feel emotionally?" Sometimes that is too abstract. A better first question is, "What do I notice in my body?" Heavy chest, tight throat, warm face, cold hands, pressure in the head, restless legs, numb shoulders, shallow breathing, empty stomach, clenched jaw. This is the doorway back to feeling. The body often knows before the mind can name it. You do not have to dramatize every sensation. You only have to listen, not as a judge, as a witness. A person who has been frozen for years may need to rebuild trust with their own body the way they would rebuild trust with another person. Slowly, respectfully, without forcing immediate intimacy. If you ignored someone's signals for years, they might not trust you right away. Your body is similar. If you have spent years pushing it, insulting it, numbing it, starving it, overstimulating it, comparing it, and using it as a machine, it may not open immediately just because you decide to heal. But every time you listen, the relationship changes. Every time you rest without cruelty, it changes. Every time you move without punishment, it changes. Every time you eat without hatred, it changes. Every time you breathe before reacting, it changes. Healing is not only understanding why you froze, it is teaching your body that it no longer has to stay frozen to survive. Chapter 7. Why relationships feel hard when you are frozen. Emotional freezing does not stay contained inside you. It affects the way you connect with others. When you are frozen, closeness may feel confusing. You may want connection and avoid it at the same time. You may feel lonely but ignore messages. You may crave being understood but become uncomfortable when someone asks a real question. You may say you want love but feel numb when love is offered. You may miss someone deeply and still not reach out. This can make you look cold, detached, unavailable, inconsistent. But often the truth is more complicated. You are not necessarily lacking love. You are lacking access to the part of you that can safely express it. If vulnerability has been linked with pain, your system may interpret intimacy as threat. Not because the person in front of you is dangerous, but because closeness resembles old danger. Someone caring about you means they might leave. Someone seeing you means they might judge. Someone needing you means you might be trapped. Someone loving you means you might disappoint them. So you keep a distance that hurts you but protects you. Many frozen people become experts at partial intimacy. They can share ideas, humor, advice, stories, even secrets, but not their living, emotional truth. They can be present for others, but absent from themselves. They can listen deeply, but when the conversation turns toward their own pain, they deflect. "I'm okay. It's not a big deal. I don't want to talk about it. I'm just tired." Sometimes they do not lie intentionally. They simply do not know how to describe what is happening. How do you explain that you feel lonely and unreachable at the same time? How do you explain that you want to be held, but also want everyone to leave you alone? How do you explain that you miss people, but replying feels like stepping into traffic?
This is the relational paradox of freeze. The thing you need may also feel threatening. Connection can thaw you, but connection can also activate the fear that made you freeze. This is why healing often requires safe people. But safe people may initially feel boring, unfamiliar, or suspicious. If your nervous system is accustomed to emotional chaos, calm can feel like absence. If love was unpredictable, consistency may not register as chemistry. If you learn to earn affection, receiving it freely may feel uncomfortable. Some people call this self-sabotage, but again, that word can become another weapon. It is more accurate to say the system is trying to prevent familiar pain. It may push away what it wants because it cannot yet tell the difference between safe closeness and old danger. This does not mean your behavior has no impact. If you disappear, people get hurt. If you stay emotionally unavailable, relationships suffer. If you avoid every hard conversation, trust weakens. Understanding your freeze is not an excuse to treat people carelessly, but it can help you respond with responsibility instead of shame. Responsibility says, I see what I am doing and I want to learn a different way. Shame says, I am terrible, so I might as well disappear again. Frozen people often disappear because shame feels unbearable. They miss one message, then feel guilty. The guilt makes the message harder to answer. More time passes. Now the answer requires explanation. Explanation requires vulnerability. Vulnerability feels unsafe, so they avoid again. A small delay becomes a wall. The way out is not a perfect apology written 3 months too late. The way out is honesty at a human scale. I went quiet because I was overwhelmed. I care about you. I'm sorry I disappeared. I am trying to handle things differently. That kind of sentence may feel terrifying, but it reintroduces truth into the relationship. It also reintroduces truth into your relationship with yourself. If you are frozen, you may need to practice letting people matter without making their reactions your entire identity. You may need to practice being seen in small doses. You may need to tell the truth before it becomes dramatic. You may need to stop waiting until you feel perfectly ready to be honest. Emotional thawing in relationships often begins with small risks. Saying, I actually didn't like that. Saying, I need time. Saying, I miss you. Saying, I'm not okay today, but I don't need you to fix it. Saying, that hurt me. Saying, I want to be closer, but closeness scares me. These are not grand speeches, they are bridges. And bridges are built from both sides. You do not have to open your entire inner world to everyone. In fact, you should not. Part of healing is discernment. Some people have not earned access to your vulnerable truth. Some people only know how to use honesty as ammunition. Some people are attached to the frozen version of you because that version was easier for them. Thawing may reveal which relationships were built on your self-abandonment. That can be painful, but it is also liberating. The more you return to yourself, the less you can remain in dynamics that require your absence. A real relationship does not demand that you stay numb to keep the peace. A real relationship has room for your truth.
Chapter 8. Why Motivation Disappears. People talk about motivation as if it is a button. Press it and go. Watch the right speech, drink coffee, write a goal, become unstoppable. That works for some people, some of the time. But for someone who is emotionally frozen, motivation is more complicated. Motivation is not just energy. It is emotional permission to move towards something. If the future feels real, motivation becomes easier. If your desires feel safe, motivation becomes easier.
If your nervous system believes effort can lead somewhere meaningful, motivation becomes easier. But if the future feels foggy, if wanting feels dangerous, if effort has been associated with pressure or disappointment, motivation may disappear before it becomes action. This is why you can know exactly what to do and still not do it. You know the workout would help, you know the application matters, you know the room would feel better clean, you know the conversation should happen, you know the project deserves attention. The information is not missing, the bridge between knowing and doing is missing. That bridge is emotional energy. Many frozen people try to replace emotional energy with pressure. They create fear. They wait until the deadline becomes urgent. They let everything become a crisis because crisis is the only state strong enough to override numbness. This can create a pattern where you only move when consequences are near. From the outside, that looks irresponsible. From the inside, it is often the only way your system can access activation. But living on crisis has a cost. It teaches the body that movement only happens under threat. Then, when there is no threat, the system collapses again. You do not build trust in yourself. You build dependence on panic. This is why gentle consistency is so powerful and so difficult. It asks you to move without hating yourself first. It asks you to act before everything is on fire. It asks you to build a relationship with effort that is not based on punishment. For a frozen person, this may feel unfamiliar. You may not know how to do something simply because it matters. You may be used to doing things because you are afraid of being judged, abandoned, punished, or left behind. When fear is removed, you may feel empty. You may confuse the absence of fear with the absence of motivation. But true motivation often starts quieter than fear. It may not feel like lightning. It may feel like a small yes. A small yes to opening the window. A small yes to washing one cup. A small yes to writing one sentence. A small yes to walking outside for 5 minutes. A small yes to telling the truth. The frozen mind rejects small steps because it wants a dramatic rescue. It says, "This is nothing, this won't change my life." But small steps are not about impressing the mind. They are about teaching the body that movement can be safe. If you have been frozen for a long time, your first task is not to build an empire. Your first task is to restore the connection between intention and action. I intend to drink water, and I do it. I intend to stand up, and I do it. I intend to send one message, and I do it. I intend to stop insulting myself for 10 seconds, and I do it. These moments may seem tiny, but they rebuild self-trust. And self-trust is the foundation of motivation. Without self-trust, every plan feels like another future betrayal. You have promised yourself too many things and abandoned them. So now, when you make a plan, part of you does not believe you. That part is not cynical for no reason. It is remembering your history. The way to rebuild trust is not with bigger promises. It is with smaller promises kept. Do not promise a complete transformation if you cannot keep it. Promise one honest action, then keep it. Let the body feel what it is like when your word becomes real again. Motivation grows where trust grows. This also means you may need to examine whether your goals are actually yours. Many people are unmotivated because they are chasing a life chosen by fear, comparison, family pressure, cultural expectation, or an old version of themselves. The body may resist because the goal is not aligned with the self. Sometimes procrastination carries information. It may be saying, "I am afraid." But it may also be saying, "This is not mine." A frozen person has to learn the difference. Not every resistance is pathology. Some resistance is wisdom. Some part of you may be tired of performing a life that does not belong to you. So ask yourself, do I want this, or do I want to be seen as someone who wants this? Do I want this, or am I trying to avoid disappointing someone? Do I want this, or am I trying to prove I am worthy? Do I want this, or am I terrified of who I would be without it? When a goal is born from shame, achieving it rarely heals the shame. It simply moves the finish line. The frozen person needs goals that reconnect them to life, not goals that turn them into a more impressive machine. Chapter 9. How to start thawing. Thawing is not a single decision. It is a process of returning. Returning to the body. Returning to feeling. Returning to desire. Returning to truth. Returning to choice. The first practice is to stop using cruelty as your main language with yourself. This does not mean pretending everything is fine. It means refusing to make self-hatred the atmosphere of your healing. You can be honest without being brutal. You can say, "I am struggling," instead of, "I am pathetic." You can say, "I avoided that because it scared me," instead of, "I am useless." You can say, "Something in me shut down," instead of, "I never change." Language matters because the nervous system listens. If every inner sentence sounds like an enemy, the body will not relax. If the only voice inside you is contempt, you will keep freezing. You cannot become safe to yourself while speaking to yourself like someone who hates you. The second practice is to make contact with the present moment through the body. Not in a perfect spiritual way, in a simple human way. Feel your feet on the floor. Notice the temperature of the room. Unclench your jaw. Relax your tongue from the roof of your mouth. Let your shoulders drop 1 inch. Take one slower breath than usual. These are small signals of return. The third practice is to name what is true without immediately fixing it. I feel numb. I feel scared. I feel angry. I feel lonely. I feel nothing, and that scares me. Naming is not weakness. Naming organizes experience. A feeling that remains unnamed often becomes fog. A named feeling becomes something you can relate to. The fourth practice is to lower the threshold for action. Do not ask, "How do I fix my life today?" Ask, "What is one action so small my nervous system does not have to panic?" If cleaning the whole room feels impossible, clear one surface. If writing the whole script feels impossible, write one paragraph. If answering everyone feels impossible, answer one person. If exercising feels impossible, put on shoes and walk outside for 2 minutes. The goal is not the task. The goal is re-entry. The fifth practice is to stop confusing intensity with progress.
Many people think healing must feel dramatic to be real, but sometimes real healing feels like a little more honesty in an ordinary day, a little less shame after a mistake, a little more capacity to stay present during discomfort, a little more ability to say no, a little more warmth toward yourself when you would normally disappear. The sixth practice is to grieve. This is the one many people avoid. They want to thaw directly into productivity, confidence, and success. But thawing often reveals sadness first. Sadness for the years spent numb. Sadness for the self you abandoned to survive. Sadness for the love you did not receive. Sadness for the dreams you delayed. Sadness for how hard you have been on yourself. Letting yourself grieve does not mean you are drowning in the past. It means you are allowing the frozen parts to melt. Ice becomes water before it becomes movement. The seventh practice is to create safe connection. Not with everyone, not all at once. Choose one person, one place, one space where you can be slightly more real. Healing in total isolation is possible in some ways, but human beings are relational creatures. Many wounds happened in relationship, and many repairs also happen in relationship. This might mean therapy if it is available. It might mean a support group. It might mean one honest friendship. It might mean writing the truth before you can say it out loud. It might mean letting someone know, I have been distant, but I am trying to come back. The eighth practice is to pay attention to what warms you, even slightly. A song, a walk, a certain kind of conversation, a memory, a place, a creative act, a smell, a prayer, a book, a pet, a morning light, a topic that makes you curious for 1 second. The frozen system may not give you strong passion at first. Look for warmth, not fireworks. Warmth is a clue. The ninth practice is to reduce what keeps you frozen. Some environments constantly reinforce shutdown. Certain relationships, certain habits, certain forms of media, certain self-comparisons, certain schedules, certain substances, certain patterns of sleep. You do not have to purify your entire life overnight, but you do need to become honest about what numbs you versus what nourishes you. The 10th practice is patience without passivity. Patience does not mean doing nothing. It means respecting pace while staying engaged. You are not waiting for a magical day when everything becomes easy. You are participating in small, consistent acts of return. Thawing may feel slow because you are rebuilding systems that were shaped over years. But slow does not mean nothing is happening. A seed underground is not visible, but it is not dead. The most important thing is this: do not turn healing into another way to hate yourself. Do not use this video as proof that you are failing. Use it as a mirror. A mirror does not attack you, it helps you see. If you see yourself here, meet that recognition with respect. Something in you survived by freezing. Now something in you is asking whether it is safe to live again. Before we move toward the ending, there is one more thing worth saying clearly. Emotional freezing often hides behind ordinary personality traits. Many people do not say, I am frozen. They say, I am just independent. They say, I am just not emotional. They say, I am bad at texting. They say, I work better under pressure. They say, I do not need much. They say, I have always been this way. Sometimes those statements are true, but sometimes they are the language of adaptation. Independence can be healthy, but it can also be what happens when depending on others was repeatedly unsafe. Calmness can be a strength, but it can also be what happens when the body learned that expressing emotion created problems. Privacy can be wise, but it can also be what happens when being known felt dangerous. High standards can be useful, but they can also be what happens when love was tied to performance. This is why self-understanding requires honesty, not just labels.
The question is not only, what am I like? The deeper question is, how did I become this way? And does this way of living still serve me? For example, you may be someone who never asks for help. Maybe you call that strength. And yes, there may be strength in it. But is there also loneliness? Is there also fear? Is there also a memory of asking and being ignored? Is there a part of you that decided a long time ago that needing anyone was too humiliating? Or maybe you are someone who avoids conflict. Maybe you call yourself peaceful, and maybe you are peaceful. But is there also terror beneath it? Do you stay silent not because the issue is small, but because the possibility of someone's anger feels unbearable? Do you agree while your body says no? Do you keep relationships calm by abandoning yourself first? Or maybe you are someone who never gets excited. You call yourself realistic. You say you do not like getting your hopes up. But is that realism? Or is it disappointment dressed as wisdom? Did you stop hoping because hope was childish? Or because hope once hurt too much? These questions are not meant to attack you. They are meant to give you back complexity. You are not a simple problem. You are a history. You are a nervous system. You are a set of protections, longings, fears, loyalties, and unfinished conversations with life. A good psychologist does not only ask, "What symptom do you have?" A good psychologist asks, "What purpose did this symptom once serve?" Because symptoms often begin as solutions. Avoidance may have protected you from humiliation. Numbness may have protected you from grief. Overthinking may have protected you from uncertainty. People-pleasing may have protected you from abandonment. Perfectionism may have protected you from criticism. But a solution created in danger can become a problem in safety. The child who had to be quiet may become the adult who cannot speak. The teenager who had to become numb may become the adult who cannot feel love. The person who had to perform may become the adult who cannot rest. The one who had to survive alone may become the adult who cannot receive help, even when help is available. This is why healing can feel like betraying your old survival system. A part of you may think, if I soften, I will be hurt again. If I trust, I will be foolish again. If I hope, I will be crushed again. If I feel, I will lose control. That part is not your enemy. It is young, tired, and scared. It needs to be updated, not destroyed. You might imagine it like an old security guard who has been working the night shift for years. At one point, the danger was real. The guard stayed awake, locked doors, turned off lights, kept everyone out. That guard helped you survive. But now the guard does not know the war is over. It still treats every knock like a threat, every invitation like a trap, every feeling like an intruder. Healing is not firing the guard with hatred. Healing is walking up gently and saying, "Thank you. You worked so hard. But you do not have to guard every door anymore. Some doors can open. Some people can be allowed in. Some feelings can pass through without destroying the house." This takes time because the guard will not believe you immediately. Why should it? It learned from experience.
So you must give it new experience, not one time, many times. You open one small door and nothing terrible happens. You tell one small truth and you remain safe. You feel one small sadness and it passes through. You take one small step and you survive movement. That is how the system learns, not through force, through evidence. And this is why your healing may not look impressive to other people at first. They may not understand that answering one message was progress, that going outside was progress, that admitting you were hurt was progress, that crying instead of going numb was progress, that stopping in the middle of self-attack and choosing one kinder sentence was progress. But you will know, somewhere inside, the frozen part will know something is different now. Chapter 10. You are not broken. You are returning. There is a particular moment in healing when a person realizes, I was not lazy. I was exhausted from holding back feelings I did not know how to carry. That realization can bring relief, but also grief. Relief because the old insult no longer fits. Grief because you may see how long you punished yourself for a wound you did not understand. You may look back at years of procrastination, numbness, avoidance, and emotional distance with new eyes. Not as evidence that you were defective, but as evidence that you were trying to survive with the tools you had. Were those tools costly? Yes. Did they protect you completely? No. Did they create new problems? Absolutely. But they were not random. They were adaptations. And the beautiful, difficult truth is that adaptations can change. You are not doomed to remain the way you became under pressure. The self is not a fixed object. It is a living system. It responds to safety, truth, love, repetition, grief, rest, courage, and time. The frozen person can thaw. The numb person can feel again. The disconnected person can return. Not always quickly, not always neatly, not without help, but genuinely. It may begin in small ways. One day you laugh, and it surprises you because it feels real. One day music reaches you again. One day you cry, not because everything is worse, but because something inside you is no longer locked. One day you say no and realize the world did not end. One day you finish a small task and feel a quiet kind of pride. One day you tell someone the truth and remain in the room. One day you want something and do not immediately crush the desire. One day you notice that the fog is not gone, but it is thinner. These are not small things. These are signs of life returning. Do not underestimate quiet healing. The world celebrates loud transformation, before and after photos, grand declarations, sudden success, reinvention. But some of the deepest transformations are almost invisible. A person stops speaking to themselves with contempt. A person rests without guilt for the first time. A person admits they are lonely. A person asks for help. A person stops chasing people who require their self-abandonment. A person begins to feel their own preferences again. That is not nothing. That is a life coming back online. If you are emotionally frozen, you may need to forgive yourself for the time you spent surviving. This does not mean pretending your choices had no consequences. It means understanding that you cannot build a healed life on endless self-punishment. You may need to repair things.
You may need to apologize. You may need to change habits. You may need to seek support. You may need to face truths you avoided. Healing is not passive, but the energy behind it can change. Instead of moving from, I hate myself, you begin moving from, I want to come home. Coming home to yourself may be the real work, not becoming perfect, not becoming constantly productive, not becoming impressive enough to finally deserve peace. Coming home to your body, to your feelings, to your voice, to your boundaries, to your grief, to your tenderness, to your anger, to your desire, to your ordinary human need for warmth, meaning, rest, and connection. You are allowed to be a person, not a project. You are allowed to heal without turning healing into performance. You are allowed to move slowly and still be moving. You are allowed to need support. You are allowed to be affected by what happened. You are allowed to admit that numbness protected you, and also admit that you do not want to live behind it forever. The goal is not to feel everything all at once. That would overwhelm the very system trying to recover.
The goal is capacity. A little more capacity for sadness without drowning. A little more capacity for joy without mistrusting it. A little more capacity for closeness without disappearing. A little more capacity for effort without panic. A little more capacity for rest without shame. This is how a person returns, not by attacking the frozen part, but by becoming safe enough for it to soften. So the next time you hear the old voice say, "You're just lazy," pause. Ask a better question. What am I protecting myself from feeling? What does this stillness know that my self-criticism refuses to hear? Where did I learn that movement was unsafe? What small act of warmth could I offer myself today? Not a perfect act, not a dramatic act, a real one. Maybe you drink water. Maybe you open the curtains. Maybe you answer one message. Maybe you write one honest sentence. Maybe you cry for 2 minutes. Maybe you put your hand on your chest and say, I know you are tired. I am listening now. That may sound too simple to a mind addicted to punishment, but the nervous system often begins healing through simple things that are finally done with kindness. You are not lazy. You are not dead inside. You are not beyond reach. You are not the worst thing you have called yourself in your lowest moments. You are a human being whose system learned to survive by going still. And now, slowly, carefully, honestly, you can learn something else. You can learn that feeling will not destroy you. You can learn that wanting does not make you weak. You can learn that rest is not failure. You can learn that boundaries do not make you cruel. You can learn that movement can be gentle. You can learn that you do not have to earn the right to exist. You can learn that the life inside you is not gone. It has been waiting beneath the ice. And maybe healing begins the moment you stop calling yourself lazy long enough to hear the quieter truth underneath. I froze because I had to, but I do not have to stay frozen.